Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 1041 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today I'll be speaking with Honey. She is the mother of 2 children. Her youngest has type 1 diabetes. Honey and her husband live on a family farm in Washington State. We talk a lot about what it's like to live there, work there, and raise animals. Her son Vinny is using a T-Slim and Dexcom. While you're listening today, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. How would you like to save 40% on everything that's available at CozyEarth.com? You can. You go there, you put your stuff in the cart, and use the offer code JUICEBOX at checkout to save 40% off of your entire order. Save 10% off your first month of therapy at BetterHelp.com/JuiceBox. And of course, the Diabetes Pro Tip series has been remastered and is available in your audio app right now between episode 1000 and 1026. Do not miss it. DiabetesProTip.com if you don't want to listen in an app. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by AG1. That's right, I drink AG1 every morning, and you could as well. drinkag1.com/juicebox. When you use my link, you will get 5 free travel packs and a year's supply of vitamin D with your first order at drinkag1.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored today by Omnipod. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Are you looking for an Omnipod 5 or the Omnipod DASH? They're both there at that link. Omnipod.com/juicebox. Get started today, learn more, and check into that free test drive. Links to Omnipod, AG1, and all of the sponsors are in the show notes of the audio app you're listening in now. They're also available at juiceboxpodcast.com.
Hi, Scott. Thanks so much for having us on today. My name is Honey, and I own a farm up in northeastern Washington, and I am the mom of a type 1 who is a 6-year-old little kindergartner, and we are just thrilled to be on your show today talking about diabetes and being bold with insulin.
Cool. All right. So 6-year-old daughter, son?
Son. Yep.
How old was he when he was diagnosed?
So he was almost 5. He was 4 at the time. And a little background on me, I'm actually a school nurse. And so I had this inkling in the back of my head that something was wrong, something was going on. And he, had all the classic signs and symptoms. And my husband's also a fireman. So we have this kind of medical background. But it was kind of fluky the year that he was diagnosed. We had this incredible drought happening. The weather was the hottest we've seen it. We had no rain for months, and which is not typical of Washington, if you're familiar with the Northwest. And we just thought something's wrong. And anyways, we got him in, and it was actually the first day of school. So my first day back at work, and the docs here in our local little clinic said, let's do some blood work. I think you're on to something. I think you're right. And I said, just do me a solid and let's poke his finger in the clinic here. And he was 512. And that was pretty much the telltale. We're going to the hospital and we know what our life is going to look like moving forward from here. And, as a mom, that's scary. As a nurse, it's, okay, this is doable. This isn't curable, but there's tools and things out there that we can handle. But I still always revert back to I'm a mom first. And, I was like, my baby is now, it's going to be a life changer. So that was in September of 2021. And he turned 5 in that year. And then he just turned 6. And, it hasn't slowed him down one bit, I would say, actually. He's done pretty darn amazing. Yeah.
Well, let's find out about it. But before we do, have you ever been concerned or worried that life is the Matrix and that your life was designed by the same guy that wrote the penthouse letters in the 80s? Be- because here's what I've heard so far. Hi, my name's Honey. I'm a nurse. My husband's a fireman, and we live on a farm. This sounds like the next sentence is going to be, on a Friday night, my husband came home after putting out a big fire with his big hose, and it's just like, seriously, like, are you serious, honey?
We are serious. I know. It's our whole story to how we got here it's kind of interesting. Because my husband and I met through work, and it's not like, oh, the nurse and the fireman that met in the ER or anything. We just met through our jobs. I was working in an adult ICU, and he was working for the local fire station, and we met through coworkers. And we've done a lot of cool things together. We've remodeled a couple homes. We've gone from a 5-acre farm to now a 115-acre farm. Wow. So, but it's something that drives and fuels us outside of, our jobs as a nurse and a fireman. Wow. So
have you ever brought him cookies at the fire station that he took you for a ride in his Camaro?
No, but I wish. Gosh. I mean, that would have been so fun.
I swear to you. How old are you?
I am 36.
Oh, you have no context for what I said when I said penthouse letters then.
You know what the funny thing is, though, is my husband, he'll listen to this and he'll be like, I know exactly what he is talking about. Yeah, so, because
well, honey, I'll give you the tiniest overview. There used to be nudie magazines in the world. I don't think they exist anymore. And in one of them, they would purport to be printing letters from readers, but they were clearly written by nebbishy, horny guys. Do you know what I mean? And and anyway, like, it totally would have started out like this. I just
funny.
100% know.
I mean, yeah, you can take it for what you want. I mean, let your listeners have their own imagination. And if they're 80s babies, and my husband, like I said, he will listen and he will say, I know exactly what Scott is talking about. Not even a big deal.
If I wasn't so lazy, I'd get some like cheesy like Cinemax music and play it behind the entire episode. Yes. And while you're telling me about things, there would just be like chicka chick bow would like just go off in the background. Anyway, sorry.
I love it. No, good.
As you were going through it, I was like, this isn't real.
Yes, it is real. I promise.
Okay, so this is only like a year or so ago.
Yeah. We're very new to the type 1 world, I guess you could say. Yeah. Right. So, but I do feel like, thankfully, with our background, the needles and the insulin and, the poking or dealing with, pumps and stuff like that didn't really intimidate my husband and I. I think the most intimidating thing when we were diagnosed was like, oh my gosh, this is obviously it's life-changing. Like, no matter what you say or do, it's life-changing. Yeah. And being able to, kind of flip the script. And we always tell Vinny, that's our son, like, do not let it define you. I know you're 6 and there's days that you wake up and it's rough, or, there's days that you woke up and, your sight's gone bad and then we have to do this all before school, or you have a bad day at school because you had a low and then you had to miss recess, or whatever it ended up being. We really try and empower him to not let diabetes define him. And, we also have a daughter who's his big sister. And so there's also that fine line of keeping the balance and the family peace when you're dealing with really a family disease that affects everybody. It just doesn't affect him. It affects everybody in the family.
For sure. How old's your daughter?
She's 9.
Okay.
So, and, I will say she has done incredibly well. She was obviously super worried when he was diagnosed. And there's a lot of times where she's like the second mom. She's really helpful. I mean, but there also are times where she's like, this is unfair because Vinny gets so much more attention, in certain moments. And I'm like, I get it. It's not fair.
Does she actually come to you with that?
Yeah, she'll say, like, it's not fair. Like, Vinny got this or that, or had an extra piece of candy because he was going low. And so we try and bounce that pretty well. And, if he gets something to treat a low, then we try and give her something to treat a low. But again, we're at the same time pretty health conscious about things as well. And she will even say to us, well, I'm okay. I don't need a piece of candy because I want to try and be on the healthier side of things today. So, it's just one of those things I think you deal with as a family managing type 1.
Yeah. So when this happens, obviously you were able to see it quickly, but did you expect it? Is there do you have any autoimmune issues, your husband or your family? drinkag1.com/juicebox. I heard words very similar to that on a different podcast a couple of years ago, and then I started drinking AG1. Today you're hearing about it on my podcast. It's, what do they call that? Meta? Circle of Life? Who knows? Today I get my foundational nutritional supplements from drinking AG1. I feel better when I drink AG1, and I do it every day. I can remember back to before I had AG1, and things just weren't the same. AG1 is a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food-sourced nutrients. AG1 is raising the standard for quality in the supplement category and helping you to build a healthy foundation. drinkag1.com/juicebox. When you use my link, you're also going to get 5 free travel packs and a year's supply of vitamin D with your first order of AG1. AG1 helps to provide sustainable energy, improved digestion, and mental clarity. It's easy to mix, great to drink, easy to clean up. It will take you just a couple of moments at the beginning of your day. I mix mine with some cool water, knock it right back, and I'm on my way. drinkag1.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. When you click on those links, you're supporting the production of the podcast.
No, we neither of us do. And no, we didn't expect it. I said to my husband, I can remember vividly texting him because he was diagnosed like the end of August. So it was August 31st. And I think I remember looking back at my text messages, and I had texted him like the very beginning of August and said, I think Vinny has diabetes. And he was like, okay, well, we'll get him in and we'll get him looked at, which of course we did. And then of course, being a nurse and in my background, I went from adult ICU to working as a peds nurse on a cardiac and transplant floor. I would float to the cancer care unit. And so I had seen those kids with different leukemias and stuff. And so in the back of my mind, I thought, well, it's diabetes or it's cancer. And I was like, neither one is anything that we would choose, for anybody. But we ended up with him being a type 1. And I was just glad that we had answers.
Yeah,
at that point I was like, okay, we have answers. Now we know what's going on, because he just wasn't our boy. He was irritable. He always felt like he had a stomach ache, and he had lost weight. And that was like my big trigger, was like, man, he's not putting on weight for a little like 4-year-old. He should be like thriving, and he's doing the opposite.
Was it difficult too because he was 4, like communicating with him like very clearly about how he felt?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it was. He would sit at the dinner table, and I remember too, like there'd be times where we'd cook salmon and he'd be like, having a fit over salmon, which I'm like, okay, I get it. You're 4. Like that's not everybody's favorite meal. And then he would just cry and cry and cry and cry, and we couldn't console him. And he would just seem so overly tired. I thought, this is really weird. You're not like this. Normally you like fish or salmon or whatever we put on the table. He's not our picky eater. Our 9-year-old is actually our picky eater.
Yeah, I figured that out when she was complaining about not getting an extra piece of candy.
Yes. Yeah. So it was just really eye-opening. And, at 4, it just took a lot. It took a lot more time getting down on his level, explaining to him, there's nothing that you did wrong. There's nothing mom or dad did wrong. This just happened. Mm-hmm. And we tell him this still now. We tell him there is some reason. I'm not a firm believer of like everything happens for a reason, but I'm like, there's some reason that this happened. There is some reason that you were diagnosed, whether you end up being a doctor or you end up going into a medical profession, or, you end up running a podcast like Scott, you do something like that. There's a reason, that this has happened. And we don't know why yet, but we will in the future. And so we try and kind of, hone that into him on a daily basis. Like,
Do you think it's comforting for him?
I think so,
Yeah.
and he's so good about, like, he's at school, and granted, I'm one of his school nurses. So I actually don't work in the elementary school. I work in the middle school. And so I don't get to see him on a daily basis, but he will tell his friends, like, well, I have diabetes, so this is why I have to have this. And we've gone into the classrooms and said, this is why Vinny carries a phone on him, and this is why he will have sugar when you guys don't get to have sugar. And, try and make it really versus something that he's hiding and ashamed of. We try and be pretty open about it because it's not something that you can really avoid, based on the pump that he wears and the fact that he carries like a little fanny pack around with like snacks for Lowe's
Yeah.
and his phone in it because he's a kindergartner. And I'm like, I can't imagine a kindergartner carrying a phone around or other kindergartners understanding why another kindergartner is carrying a phone around.
Well,
And so, and we chose to go that route just because we wanted to be able to either talk to somebody quickly while we weren't there,
sure.
or when he's able to, he can, text us. He's not quite there yet, but he'll get there eventually.
Hey, Arden had an iPhone in kindergarten back
Yep.
when iPhones just came out, and we were the scourge of the town for doing that.
I still feel like that.
Yeah.
I feel like when people see us out, I'm like, do I need to explain myself? No, I'm not going to explain myself. They can make a pre-assorted judgment on me if they want, but at the end of the day, this is what he needs. And if somebody wants to, be a kind human and ask versus just judge, I'm open
I'm
to telling
certain.
our story.
I am certain that people looked at us and were like, oh, there's the fucking assholes that bought their kid an iPhone.
Yes. And that's how I feel.
Yeah, causing us to be bothered by our children because they want an iPhone. And
exactly.
Listen, whatever. One time we were in a 504 meeting, and and a nurse said, like, or a teacher, she goes, well, Arden can't bring her iPhone into the room because then all the kids will want one. I was like, tell them just to get an incurable disease and they can have one. Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
If they need it that bad. I don't know how to make diabetes happen, but they should go concentrate on it and see what they can do.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, right now I need you to either make a reference about driving or slapping Chris Rock so I can call this episode Honey, Honey, Come Ride. So can you work one of those things in while we're talking, please?
Sure. I'll try and work it. Well, speaking of the farm, the kids, that was kind of our biggest thing when Vinny was diagnosed. My husband looked at me in the hospital and he said,
pickles. I bet you that's not what he said, but we'll find out in a second. My daughter has been wearing an Omnipod every day since she was 4 years old. Today, she is 19 years old and a sophomore in college. She's wearing an Omnipod right now. She wore one last week, and she'll wear one tomorrow. It is a complete and utter friend in this trip with diabetes. Omnipod.com/juicebox. You can get the Omnipod DASH or the Omnipod 5 at my link. Omnipod DASH is a regular pod, tubeless and lovely. You can swim with it, bathe with it, jump in a lake, go play soccer. Doesn't matter. No tubing. Never have to take it off to do your activities. And it's all what you would consider like an OG insulin pump, right? You set your basal insulin up, you make your own decisions. It's a beautiful delivery system for insulin. Now, the Omnipod 5 is an algorithm-based pod, and it works with the Dexcom G6. Omnipod 5 is going to make insulin decisions for you. You still put in your carbs and tell it what you're eating, but if it sees your blood sugar going up, it tries to stop it. If it sees your blood sugar going down, it takes insulin away and tries to stop that as well. It doesn't matter if you choose the Omnipod 5 or the Omnipod DASH. Omnipod is going to simplify your life with its tubeless insulin pump. Omnipod 5 has the Smart Adjust technology. Go to my link and read more about it. Omnipod.com/juicebox. You don't have to take the Omnipod off for anything. I mentioned it earlier, but anything involving water, bathing, swimming, anything involving activity where you most likely would take off a tube pump, you don't have to do that with Omnipod. And I'll tell you what, that's really important because your blood sugar can rise up to like 1 point per minute if you take your pump off. You don't want that. You want good, consistent insulin delivery. Head over now, check out your coverage, find out your estimated copay, or check that other button out. I'd like a free trial of Omnipod, please. It's all there on my link, omnipod.com/juicebox. You can wear the same exact insulin pump that my daughter's been wearing for 15 years. Links in the show notes. Links at juiceboxpodcast.com.
Do we need to give up the farm? We'd been doing this for 2 years plus already. We have, draft horses, and we have Scottish Highland cattle. So we have those big, fluffy, horned cows. We have goats. We have chickens. We have barn cats. We have all the things. And that's a lot to manage on top of, just being a mom, being a dad, having a full-time job outside of the home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is, what? Again, not coming back to everything happens for a reason. I'm like, absolutely not. Everything that we're doing here will help Vinny in the future, because guess what? You don't have to dose for. You don't have to dose for protein. And I'm like, there is, I get that some people aren't protein fans. We are a protein at kind of every meal fam. And we, sat down in the hospital and said, no, this is super duper important. This is what we need to be doing. This is how we need to raise the kids, and kind of sharing our story in a different light for hopefully, people who don't have the knowledge of type 1, because that's a whole nother story of, oh, you have type 1, he'll grow out of it. And then, or you have diabetes. They don't know the difference between type 1 or type 2.
Or they think juvenile means that it only exists while you're a child. That's
exactly.
That's a popular one.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, he'll grow out of it or whatever. But no, this is something that we're really trying to work on and build so that the kids can potentially take the farm over one day. And for us, knowing exactly kind of where our food comes from, we, on top of, raising all these animals, we also have 3 ginormous gardens. We have a 24 by 48 hoop house where we raise all of our tomatoes and our peppers. And thankfully, he's not our picky eater. And he is super helpful on the farm. He and his sister will drive out in our little RTV and go get eggs for us. And they'll go check on the cows. And, I think that we had some reservations initially when he was diagnosed, thinking, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Thankfully, my knowledge as a school nurse and my background as a school nurse to that point, because I've only been a school nurse for 3 years now, I was like, well, there's really great tools out there that we can use and that will help us monitor him, especially when he's away from us. And we just make sure when the kids are out, rolling around on the farm, whether they're, running up the hill to check on the pigs or they're out in our UTV driving around, that they are set, that we've got stuff for Lowe's with him pretty much all the time, and that he's got some sort of communicated device, whether it's a phone or something on him, so that when they're helping us on the farm, that we can still make sure that he's safe.
Do you have glucagon with him when he's out on the farm? Does your daughter know how to help him? Things like that?
No, you know what? We don't keep a glucagon in our little farm rig. And the only reason why is because of the temperature, the temperature control. So we keep stuff like fruit snacks and juice in there. And he knows when he's getting low. It took a while, that first 6 months honeymoon phase that he was in. He would be 34 and talking to us. And I'm like, Vinny, let's eat right now. And he was fine. Now, when he goes low, he can tell us before he's getting below 60. And so that's super helpful. Yeah, he'll say, I don't feel good. I'm starting to feel low. And so we keep snacks on him so that way he can dose himself while he's, still being outside and living the life as a kid should on a farm. We still want him to be a true rugged farm kid.
Yeah. We refer to that as feeling the fall.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I guess I want to talk about that for a second. I'm assuming you're building this big thing, right? By the way, your life sounds right. Are you also an astronaut, on the weekends or something? Why do you guys have
I
so
love
much
it.
energy? Are you doing a lot of
Right?
coke or something? How do you have all this
No.
energy? Seriously. I'm a nurse. I
I,
did this. He's a fireman. We have a
I
farm. There's a pig. There's a goat. I'm like, what in the hell?
I know. My husband's famous quote is like, "I'll sleep when I'm dead," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes." We are really trying to bite off as much as we can right now while we are young. I'm 36. My husband's going to be 42 this year,
Mhm.
and we really are trying to get a lot of things done, not only to set ourselves up for success, but like I said, the kids. We hope to pass this
And
on to
that's
the
where my
kids.
question is, because I tell Arden, I'm like, you could probably keep the podcast going after like
Yeah.
I'm old. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, you're good at it. And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe. And then, it's just, so, I mean, I can't wait I won't be around the day you're like, you guys don't want the farm I killed myself to build.
Yeah, I know, right?
Wait, tell me again what you want.
Yes.
So him working on the farm, doing the things he does, he doesn't get
Yeah.
low. He doesn't get low.
No, for the most part, he actually like stays pretty even killed. I will say he's out, especially when we're out in the garden, he'll like be snacking on some strawberries
Mhm.
or he'll pull a carrot and snack on a carrot. So he's still, especially when we're outside. So that is kind of a hard bounce. Like, okay, how many strawberries have you eaten from the garden? Because now I don't know what you've had. And
Yeah.
let's make a really good guess on what you've had as far as dosing goes. But he is pretty good about that. He can, tell us when he's feeling the fall, and he'll go back inside if he's not feeling good, and he'll have a snack himself. And thankfully, we do this with a lot of our family. We have a ton of family close by, and so if we have to step away from a project or finish doing something early, then we can come back inside and make sure that
Mhm.
he's doing okay. He's got what he needs, and then he usually comes back out on the farm with us.
Do you
Um,
do you employ
yeah, go
do
ahead.
you employ people?
We don't.
No.
We're still small enough that we don't need to have like full-time employees or anybody working for us.
Mhm.
But it does help that we have our family here as well, because we all kind of like reap the benefits from the farm, right? Like, so we, with our meat. And then as far as the vegetables go, my mother-in-law and I do a lot of canning, freeze a lot of our berries, and you can freeze a lot of your vegetables too. It just depends on what you're going to use them for future use. But
Mhm.
we try and freeze a lot of that stuff. And the kids get involved and help too, like when we can green beans, they're like the best green bean cutters ever. So I guess I employ my children
Yeah.
to a sense.
I mean, I assumed you had them working. I just wasn't sure
Yes.
about like, if there were other people there. It just seems like
Yeah.
like, can I look the farm up online or something? Or
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. So
because I don't
the
understand. You understand that I don't understand. Like my dog
yeah.
had to go out before we recorded this, and I was pissed that I had
Yeah.
to take him out. So
Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. So, and with that, like our farm, so we follow regenerative agriculture. So I don't know if you've heard that term. It's being thrown around a lot lately, but basically, when we bought our land, it was pretty like used and abused. It was sprayed for pesticides, sprayed for weeds, and so with herbicides and stuff. And when we bought the farm, we've not sprayed or done anything. So we're totally chemical free here.
Mhm.
And we actually use our cows and our animals to help regenerate the soil and, grow healthier grass. We joke around and say, well, we're soil farmers and grass farmers first versus us being, a rancher or, people that sell eggs or stuff like that. We really try and focus on healing the land. So basically our cows, they're on winter pasture right now and they get hay every day. And when they come back out onto pasture, we move them once a day. So think of them in a little square. And then the next day they move to a new square and they don't get to go back to the old little patch of grass that they were on.
Mhm.
And it goes like that all year long until they come back to winter pasture. So our cows are on fresh grass every single day. And it is a lot of work. And in the years that we've been doing this, we've learned a lot of things, and the kids are right there by our side. So if you go look us up on social media, they're in videos where they're helping us pull fences or pull the stakes that hold our fences up, or helping us, they'll drive our UTV and help us move the water, move the minerals. They get our eggs for us. We'll ask them when we're cooking dinner, hey, can you guys run out to the garden and get a pepper and a head of broccoli? And they'll run out and get what we need for things. And so they're a big help. And we really try and incorporate them into pretty much everything we do. And Vinny's right there alongside us, just, plugging away.
So let me
not letting things affect him.
Let me test my knowledge of this, right? So the cows being in one place and then taking off the grass, then defecating, and then moving on, like you're kind of regenerating the ground that way. So you keep moving them so that they're doing the work to bring the soil back to where it needs to be. Obviously you were right. Like, it's become fashionable to talk about regenerative farming in some places. So I've heard things like some soils only have 60 seasons left and things like that then you have to bring in outside, like, man-made fertilizers just so things will grow in some places because the soil's so dead. And you're okay. And you're trying to stop that you're trying to bring that back from what you bought. I see.
Yep. Yeah, we are trying to stop all of that, so there are definitely farmlands, I think, that are, this is what their grandpas did. And this is just the way they farmed. And we are trying to step away from that and really heal the soil, like you said, with the use of the animals. So them grazing, them, actually eating the grass and pulling at the grass seeds helps to regenerate the soil down in the roots. That helps. Like you said, the defecating, getting their nutrients back into the ground. It's all natural fertilizer.
Yeah.
And then we have our chickens follow behind them, and then they spread their manure and eat the worms that are in the manure. And it's this whole kind of like circle of life.
I was going to say, are you trying not to say circle of life? Because
yes, I am. But I'm like, it's going to happen. It happened.
I'm like, she's trying not to say circle of life right now, but there are no other words for it.
No, it's not. And to put that into like perspective for somebody who's not on a farm and doesn't understand, what we talk about when we're talking about replacing the carbon and the nitrogen in the ground, that's effectively what we're trying to do, is basically make healthier soil. Mm-hmm. And we want to see the microorganisms that we know are in the soil come back to life. And in turn, like on a drought season, if there isn't anything for the, when there's no soil and there isn't anything for the water to be absorbed into, well, then you don't have grass that grows. And then you're stuck either, irrigating or fertilizing or praying that you're going to have some sort of harvest or hay or, whatever your crop is that year, so that you can feed your animals through winter. And so it's, I say it a lot. It's a lot of work, but we absolutely love it, and we wouldn't be farming really any other way.
So where does the money come from? Like, okay, like seriously, like we've canned things, we've grown things, we've raised things. Then, I mean, do you, like, for example, like, let's go through it. Like, you've canned the vegetables. You sell them online? You sell them locally?
We don't. That's super hard to do because just of state laws and regulations, especially when you're canning things. People do it. So let me preface that. People do it. We do not. You have to go to a special kitchen to do that, and there isn't one close to our house.
Food packer. You'd need to employ a food packer, right?
Basically, yeah.
And what about the beef then? How do you do that?
So the beef, so basically kind of like where you probably buy your beef or your pork from, our beef goes to what's a USDA butcher. So that's a federally inspected butcher. Mm-hmm. And because it's been inspected, we can sell that across state lines. We can sell that throughout the state. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different ways. If you're purchasing like a full animal, you can either buy a whole or a half or a quarter, or you can just buy cuts, like, hey, I want to have a ribeye with my Valentine kind of thing. You can go to local farms and say, do you have cuts available? And if they are more than likely being processed at a USDA butcher, then they can have cuts available for you to purchase. So that's what we do, is we have our animals go to butcher, we get cuts back. And then we sell those cuts to people because not everybody's interested in having a whole cow stashed in their freezer. And so we kind of appeal to those customers that say, well, I want just some bacon and I want just a couple steaks and maybe some roasts and XYZ to get us through the week of dinners. Okay, perfect. So that's where the money comes from there. Obviously, if you've seen all of the egg memes and all of the egg jokes going around, you know how expensive and crazy it is to get eggs right now. So eggs are another big thing. But what people don't realize is that eggs or chickens decrease their output in the winter because of daylight hours, and it's just colder in general. And they also molt, so they shed all of their feathers to bring in new feathers for the next year. And so there are a lot of different factors that affect why chickens lay and why they don't lay. And so like right now, we do not advertise that we have eggs, and we sell only to a couple like very loyal customers because we don't have enough to supply everybody like we usually do in the summer.
I see.
So that will change, but yeah, so that's basically where the money, comes from. And then we sell our live animals as well to people that, either want goats to do the same thing like us to help clear brush or to manage their weeds, or people that just want cows because Highland cows are really popular and some people just want them as like a backyard pet.
Seriously?
Kind of thing. Seriously. Yep. There are people that have Highland cows as just backyard pets, and we don't do that, but there are people out there that definitely want them just to have a cute fluffy cow in their yard. And you can have a cow on 3 acres and they do fine.
How much does a cow cost me if I want one?
Oh man, I think it depends on, there's a fluctuating price. You could get them, and this is throughout the country, but I've seen them as low as $2,000, and then we have seen them go at auction for up to $40,000.
Okay.
So
how much would it cost me if I had it butchered and I bought it as the beef?
Yeah. So if you did that, you pay your farmer your hang weight. And so basically whatever the farmer sets is their hang weight price.
Mm-hmm.
So national standards right now is about $5 a pound. And then you would also pay your cut and wrap fees, which can, depending on how you cut and wrap your animal, is typically $250 to $300 is what you're paying. So if you were going to buy a whole cow, you could guesstimate that you're going to spend about $1,500, but that's in beef.
Okay, and then maybe another $300-400 for the cutting and the wrapping.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So the animal's basically worth about $2,000. I was going to say dead or alive, but
yes.
Look at me. I'm getting into an entire cowboy theme because we're speaking.
I know. Yeah. I like it.
Also,
we're learning so much.
I've watched Yellowstone recently, so
Oh yes, I know. We're big Yellowstone fans. That's funny.
I am fascinated by this because if I'm some nudnik who puts a cow on their property just to have one, because that's how by the way, if you own a cow as a pet, that's how I see you, as a nudnik. But anyway, so what does it cost me to feed the thing? And so,
I mean, you have to think about that. That's one of the biggest questions we get. You have to factor in the cost of hay. If you live somewhere like us where we had 13 inches of snow before Christmas, which is not normal. So you have to factor in your cost of hay. And granted, we're buying hay and we make our own hay. So we're making it on very, very large scales. So we have about 70 tons that we store for the winter. So that's quite a bit. We have a whole building that's dedicated on our property to just storing hay. And that's another place where the kids love to go play. They love to play in the haymow because we have a big, beautiful barn too. And they love to go play in that. But that is something that you have to factor in. So your guess maybe per month is you're probably going to spend $100 on hay a month if you had like one cow.
And there's going to be cow shit everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. So you could compost that, and you could put that back into your garden to help.
Could I, honey?
Grow. Yes, you sure could. I think we should get
you might not know me that well, but I don't think I can.
I mean, wait a minute. You were annoyed about your dog.
I was so irritated. He's like, I have to pee. And I'm like, you mother Okay. I was
Yeah.
like, I got to go make a podcast, but we'll go outside and pee now. Then he did. And I'm like, dude, get back in the house. And then, by the way, the dog's 14 years old and he knows. And he's looking at me like, I was thinking of walking around. And I'm like, you need to go back in the house. And he starts wandering away from me and ignoring me. And I had to like run and jump in front of him. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I thought I could get away with it. And then he walks in the house. This cow will not like attack me. Like if I go up, no. And I need 3 acres to legally keep a cow on my property?
Well, I mean, that depends. If you're in a neighborhood, it just depends on kind of what your guys's, I guess, laws and stuff are, depending on where you are. Because there's some places where you couldn't do this.
Because I'm on an acre in Jersey, and in a residential place. I'm thinking I'm going to throw a cow back there to screw with some people.
Oh, that would be so fun. You know what? I know that there's some breeders in that area that we should get you one. We're going to find one for you.
Yeah, we should.
I'm on a mission now.
Yeah, we should definitely get me a cow. That's a great idea. Yes. I'm not sure I could take care of the stuffed animal that I saw when I Googled Highland cattle.
You could do it.
All right.
I do.
These, you did something in the beginning, which I understand, like being in your like line of work in your life, where you were like, I know some people don't like beef, which was like protein, which is a nice way of saying I'm trying to be respectful that some people think that we're murdering animals. Yeah. But yes. I'm going to have a steak later today, just so everyone knows.
Okay, great.
But I'm trying to decide, like, that fluffy thing is edible?
They sure are. Really? I mean, and that's, I guess my thought is, what's the difference between my fluffy cow versus, a black Angus or a red Angus?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What am I eating exactly?
Right.
Yeah.
You could be eating a Highland. You just might not know it. If you don't have that connection to your farmer, then you won't know what you're getting essentially at the end of the day. And that's why
my farmer honey is Costco. So,
That's right. That's right. And I love me some Costco. And they do a great job, but yeah, that's kind of the thing for us is when my husband's like, well, we've got to figure out what we're going to do with the farm. When Vinny was diagnosed, it was like, well, no, this is like very important. And he loves our, product, one of his favorite thing. And what he requests for dinner is bones. And that is code for pork chops.
Oh,
because he loves to just gnaw on the bone of a pork chop. So for us, it's one of those important things where I feel like, yes, there is this amazing life-saving hormone that we have to give our kid multiple times a day and that we think about all the time. But then there's moments where, okay, you're just eating protein and I don't have to think about it for a minute because I don't have to dose you.
Do you not see any rise later from protein? Because protein can be stored as glucose after it's digested.
You know what? Yeah, we actually with him have not. He'll have just, like one of his favorite lunches is actually just like salami, and he's kind of getting away from cheese right now, but that was one of his favorite kind of lunches. And he will stay pretty much like right at 110 or 108,
You know what I wonder?
He has,
He's so active, isn't he?
He is very active.
Yeah.
that's also part of it.
Yeah, not to ignore diabetes for 39 minutes and then come back to it now, but I'm trying to decide, like, is he kind of like he's using a pump, right?
He's using a pump. So I don't know if I can say what pump he's using.
Why would you not be able to say that? We just said slaughter.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I think, didn't we just like talk about like cutting a cow up into little pieces? You can talk about this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. There you go.
Go ahead.
So he's on the T-Slim.
Okay.
And we went with that just because of the age. The Omnipod wasn't out at the time, or the Omnipod 5 wasn't out, obviously, at the time where we wanted to have him have that algorithm. Control IQ. Yeah.
So what's his basal set at?
His basal's 0.3.
That's what I was thinking. He's not using, and what's he weigh?
He's almost 60 pounds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's not using as much. I think his settings aren't as strong as I would expect them to be. I think it's probably because of all the activity.
Yeah. And he is very active. So like he's always in a sport. So my daughter does gymnastics and he does soccer, and he just finished basketball, and then he'll go back into soccer. And then he's also that kid when he gets home from school, he's like, I need a snack. And then it's like, okay, has a snack. And then he's like, I'm going outside. Even when it's snowing and garbage out, he's like, I'm going outside. And it's like,
I
okay,
don't understand
great.
you
So
people at all, honey. I have to be honest with you. I don't get all the action and the moving around and adding extra things to your. So you get up in the morning, go to a job, and then come home and work a farm.
Yeah.
And then what? I mean, what don't you have to cook and eat and do all those things? You go to the bathroom at some point, I imagine.
All the things.
Yeah.
We're really busy. Yeah, I know. It's actually on the mornings where my husband is gone because he's a fireman, so he'll work those 24-hour, 48-hour shifts. I have to get up, get the kids ready for school. So, and of course, these are the mornings where it's like, oh, the site went bad or his Dex failed, or it's like, are you kidding me? So got to deal with all of that and then get them fed, get them packed lunches, go outside, feed everybody because I can't leave for the day and not feed the cows, and then go to work and do it.
What time do you get up in the morning?
You know what? I actually don't get up super duper early. Like I was up at 5 today, but 5:30.
Hold on a second. You can't say I don't get up early and then say 5:30.
Yes. I mean, that's not that bad. Hey, you know what, Scott? There's people that wake up at 4 to work out. And I used to be one of those people that I'm like, I've given up on that.
Yeah,
Let's
what are you
be real.
trying to live forever? So what time do you go to bed?
Last night I went to bed at like 9:30. I was tired though last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm making fun of myself, but I shouldn't be. So here, my life's on a different schedule than yours. Because at 8:00 this morning, when my alarm went off and I thought, oh, I've got to get a shower and go make the podcast, I was like, it felt early to me. But I didn't go to bed. I didn't go to bed till like 2:00 in the morning.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that would affect me all day.
Oh, okay. I see. So you're sleeping from 9 to 5. You're getting more sleep than I am.
I am. It's good for you.
2 to 8. That's 4. Also, I woke up very angry from a dream at 3:30. You ever get pissed off at a dream?
Oh, all the time. My husband's like, what am I in trouble for now that I did in my dream? I'm like, well, just wait. I'll tell you later.
This is going to be really stupid. Wait till I tell you this.
Okay.
For 3 years, from the time I was 16 till I was 19, I was a volunteer fireman.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And
cool.
At the end, I decided I wasn't going to do it any longer, but I was still in the middle of deciding. And I think I had made it fairly clear. And then one day I decided to, like, there was a call and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go and maybe I'll decide to keep doing this. And I got there and my gear had been pulled already and it pissed me off. And I dreamt last night that happened again. And I woke up incredibly angry.
Oh, how bizarre.
And that was like 29, 39, 40. It's like 33 years ago that happened.
Interesting.
Yeah, I dreamt about something that happened when I was 19, and I was just as pissed in the middle of the night last night as I was when it happened to me when I was 19.
Well, maybe it's because you knew you were going to talk to a fire wife today.
That can't be true because I don't read the notes first. So, like when you came on and I was pulling all my stuff up, I thought, this is the lady that has the farm. And because of the bizarre way that I don't know, that I set the show up, like, I talked to you so long ago, like, you know, I mean, what did you book this? Like 6 months ago or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I've been living for the last 6 months thinking eventually I'm going to turn my thing on one day and talk about farming with somebody.
Yeah, that's right. And here you are.
And now I am. Here I am today.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's a couple of things I've learned so far.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I do want a cow now that I've seen this thing, but I think
we should make that happen for you.
It's just the specific photo on Google, I think. Maybe I'll just get this picture and hang it up. That might be easier. And also I blame Taylor Sheridan for making me feel this way too, because I think I've now watched Yellowstone, 1883, and I'm caught up on, what's the other one, 1929?
And 1923.
Yeah, 23, is that what it is?
Yes.
And so I'm caught up on that now. And and I was again irritated when I got to the end of it. And I was like, wait, there's no more episodes?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We feel the same way. I have it's a known thing, but I love Rip. I love Rip. And my husband has he doesn't have a handlebar mustache, but he's got a very aggressive and impressive mustache right now. And I'm like, yeah, I was meant to live on a farm and and be married to a cowboy.
Well, okay, I have other questions. First, let me say this. If you're enjoying all the Yellowstone TV shows, may I suggest a movie from 2016, Hell or High Water, which was actually written and directed by the guy that made the Yellowstone.
Oh, okay.
And
I will have to go watch that.
And I remembered liking it back then, and then I put 2 and 2 together eventually. Here's another thing. I've never been on a horse.
Okay.
And I feel badly about that.
You should do that. I bet there is somebody close by to you that would offer you something like that. And maybe your daughter would get a kick out of it too. Who knows? But
maybe.
No.
I have a short checklist of things. It's the weirdest checklist of things that I've never done that I think I'd like to do that I'm fairly certain I'm never going to do.
Well, is riding a horse on there?
My list so far is horse. This is so stupid.
Own a cow.
No,
Own a cow.
I've never had a cup.
Add that to the list.
I've never had a cup of coffee.
What?
Yeah, so I think I want to do that once.
Yes, you need to do that.
I've never smoked weed.
Okay.
And I've never shot a gun.
Well, you should just come over.
Could I handle all this in a day and a half at your place?
We could get you on the back of a horse. You could pet a cow.
Mm-hmm.
We could drink copious amounts of coffee.
Yeah.
We could tick a lot of the things off of that list.
I like that you skipped the weed, but you're in Washington, so whatever.
We are in Washington, so that is clearly a thing that could happen very legally for you. Yes.
Also, you've almost named the episode a number of times. You actually said, I can't believe this. You actually said bought the farm at one point.
Oh.
And you said making hay. So there's all kinds of euphemisms that have come out through your conversation so far. Oh, by the way, I also want to say that it's super interesting to me that a woman named Honey named her son Vinny.
Oh, you know what it's from? There is no family ties or anything, but we actually, after we decided we were going to name him Vincent, realized that there was family ties, but that wasn't what influenced our name. It's from Entourage.
Oh, I had my fingers crossed for Pulp Fiction, actually.
Oh, I mean, that would have been a good one too, but no, it was from Entourage. So I had knee surgery, and my husband and I binged the whole everything of Entourage, and I was like, if we have a boy, I want to name him Vincent. And he was like, okay, I love it. And so that's what he ended up as.
That's so interesting. I thought it was one of those situations like when, you're real Republican and your kids turn out Democrat or vice versa. Like you're like, well, like some hippie named me. I'm going to go with something a little more traditional is what I thought.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, and my mom, yes, I would say she was a hippie, but my name wasn't even from like that. It was, my mom's a hygienist, and she was like, had a client in, and she said, if I have a girl, I'm going to name her Honey because I love that name. I was going to be named a Petra, because we're Norwegian, but I ended up Honey, which is much more suiting and definitely fits my personality.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'm not a Petra.
Petra is tough. I think you have to be like an Instagram model with abs to be called Petra. That's a tough one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a look there you got to pull off. You got to be like 6 feet tall and have like, I'm thinking blonde hair slicked back.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think you get to be the bad guy in an Eddie Murphy movie, if I'm remembering.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Or no, Sylvester Stallone, maybe. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. So the diabetes thing is not that big of a part of your day, huh?
Well, it is a big part of our day. I mean, I think about when we were first diagnosed and how overwhelming that feels. And then, being, new to so not new because I deal with kids at school, right, all day with diabetes or other life-threatening allergies or seizures, etc. And so I had a little bit of background, but didn't have enough. And so, I think my biggest thing is finding those groups or those resources that are going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And like we say to Vinny every day, like, you are not defined by your diabetes. This does not define you. This is nothing, to stop you in life. This is just maybe a little roadblock, but there is a rhyme and a reason as to why he was diagnosed. And we think about it every day. Obviously, when he eats, we're thinking about it. And when he's having lows, or when we can tell if he's, going high. But for the most part, we'd really try and keep our management really well rounded, and we try and stay on top of it as best as we can, especially while we're running a farm like this. I do think that the tools that he has to help, like being on a T-Slim and having Dex are wonderful, amazing things. And we'd be lost without them. When we were doing MDI, it was like, how do people do this? Like, we need to get on a pump, And I think there's a beautiful part of MDI because his pump failed this summer. And so I was like, well, that sucks. My husband was, of course, gone. And I'm like, well, we can't let us stop us. So pack up the insulin and off we go. And you're going to have to, go back to getting injections here for a little bit. And he handled it great as a 5-year-old because he just turned 6. So this was in the summer. Yeah. As a 5-year-old, he can do his own shots and he can handle it doing his own shots. He wants to be involved. And I think that just, being proactive and, saying, you have to help us. Like, there are things that you have to help us with. And I know that you don't want to do this. And it is unfair that this happened to you, but you have to help us. He has realized, okay, I have to do it. Otherwise, the consequences, result in DKA or ending up back in the hospital or losing, if this was long-term things, losing limbs or losing vision or, things that you get scared about and worry about. And that's what makes me lose sleep at night sometimes. But then I'm like, I can't focus on all that. Otherwise, I would drown in fear. And so we really try to not let that take over our life on a daily basis, and he does great with it at school too. That was my biggest fear, was sending a kindergartner to school, even though I work at the school, and I'm right there. I'm like, but I'm still
worried,
freaked out inside. Yeah.
Yeah. We worked so hard to get Arden onto Omnipod before she started school. Because I had that same, my thought back then was just like, I don't want like a stranger sticking my kid with a needle so many times. That is actually what I thought about.
Yep.
It just occurs to me that you're managing having diabetes, your son having diabetes. Like, it sounds like you just do it the way you do everything else. And
just full out?
Well, I mean, what's the other option, really?
Right.
I mean,
right,
exactly. Like, seriously, you wouldn't see it this way because it's your life. But if you got caught into a situation where 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day was lost to like either woe is me or like, confusion or, whatever, there are like legitimate live things that would not be okay because of that. Like, it's almost like you can't, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. It's almost like you can't afford not to do it this way. And because of that, this is the way you do it. It makes me wonder if I couldn't have just taken the dog out without complaining about it. See what I'm saying?
Yes, you can. Yeah. And what's interesting, and I will say this, is when we were in the hospital, and diabetes has been around for how long, and especially in the Northwest and whatnot. And the day that we were diagnosed, so a year and a half ago, I said something to the doc, like kind of like, well, are there, because like I felt like I needed a counselor or somebody to talk to at that point. And then I was like, well, are there resources available for the kids? Expecting, I work with a counselor every day in the school. So I have a counselor at my fingertips if somebody's having an issue. But are there counselors for some of these kids who maybe don't have like a stable home situation, or they're going to have to navigate a lot of this by themselves, especially if they're in their teens or whatnot? And they had just started their program for kind of more on the mental health, behavioral side of things, or counseling, like that week. And I was flabbergasted because I thought, there's so many resources out there, but there still isn't enough. Sometimes it seems like, I rely heavily like on Facebook groups, like your Facebook group. There's type 1 diabetic mom groups. There's, tandem groups that are specific to tandem. I rely heavily on those groups to, bring more knowledge to the table for us to use with Vincent, because, at the end of the day, we're all learning. We're all learning. We're all learning from each other,
Right.
I saw somebody yesterday in your group post about like, help me swag this. And it was, like a yogurt and a string cheese and
oh my God,
cookie in it.
Yeah.
Did you see that? And I was like, holy moly, I'm well over 100 carbs is my guess right
I was
now.
over
and then
100.
I started looking.
Yeah. It was it was a kid at a Valentine's party at school.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there was so much stuff on that plate. And I thought,
Yep.
like, wow, like I could not eat any of that, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was really actually heartening to me to watch it because so many people got close enough. Like there was, my
Right.
best guess is there was about, this is going to sound crazy. There's about 110 carbs on this plate.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
but people like in that group were there. They were between 80 and 105. And they were talking about like, well, that's so much insulin. So I would probably do like this much and then wait to see if there was a rise and they all had like a plan around it and everything.
Totally.
And only, it was really interesting because it got a ton of traffic and
Right.
everyone was so very supportive about it. Like nobody was like, your kids shouldn't eat that. Cause I think we all know nobody should eat. There was like a cookie and a donut and potato chips. And like, I was like, oh my God. But
yeah,
it was one person who said, I would not eat any of that. And it was an older person. And I removed their comment and sent them a note that said, we don't tell people how to eat here. And that was the end of it. And so, but I mean, 100 other people were like, oh, I would try. It was very supportive, very interesting.
It was very supportive. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting. And I was like, that's like a perfect example of diabetes and how everybody will manage it differently. You know, like you said, there were people that said, well, would I dose half or would I give an extended bolus or would we see if they ate it all? For one, that would be my question. Would my kid eat all of that?
That was what I asked. Yeah. I was like, are you sure they're going to eat all that?
And then, you know, dose based off of that. My husband went to Vincent's Valentine's party yesterday because of that reason. I was like, there'll be treats and I'm at work and I can't, you know, leave to go over there and help, you know, dose and stuff. And I don't want to leave that in the hands of the teacher and then have him be 400 by the time he comes home. And so I think it's cool that there are so many tools and resources available out there. And I wish more people knew about that. I feel blessed because our endocrinologists, they're amazing. And they tell you, here's Facebook groups that you could follow. Here's, you know, helpful resources that you can go to. Here's a helpful group of moms or parents or whomever that you can talk with that, you know, may have a tip or trick. You know, when we first started with Dexcom, Vinny broke out in a rash every time. And I was like, oh my God, I can't, how are we going to do this? This poor little skin. And then it was someone, I was scrolling through something and somebody said Flonase and I was like, cha-ching, done, take my money. And we haven't had skin issues since then.
That's very cool.
And so, you know, I think there's so many great resources and whatnot out there. And, you know, tying back to our lifestyle, like you said, we don't have an option to not just kind of, this is the path we're going and we're going to, you know, we're just going to do what we have to do, essentially.
What made you want to come on the podcast?
You know, I wanted to come on because I feel like in my realm of when he was diagnosed was like that people should know that they're not alone because I felt very alone. And, you know, I don't know if you battled insurance. Well, I had to battle insurance in my first month. And I think I want people to know that, and this comes from also my nursing background. And my husband would probably say the same thing too, because he's a fireman and deals with people in some of their worst moments as well. But having somebody to advocate for you, or you are advocating for your child if they're a diabetic, is beyond important, you know. And I know that most of us are those big mama bears and papa bears that are like, we're going to do whatever we need to do for our kid. But then there are some people I think that need that little nudge, like, no, it's okay. You can ask for things that you want or think that your child needs and not take no for an answer.
Yeah, you can fight back a little bit. It's and it doesn't come naturally to everybody.
No, and honestly, it doesn't. And I would like, you know, I want to encourage people to think about that and you know, to not let, because like I said, when I remember in the hospital, people think this is going to stop your life. You know, like you said, you could spend 3 to 4 hours a day having a woe is me pity party. We could have done that. We could have said, we're going to sell the farm. We're going to sell all the cows. We're going to stop everything. Our focus is just going to be Vinny, giving him the best life we can. And then it clicked, like in that moment where I was like, well, doing what we're doing is going to give him the best life that we can. Not doing this and not building this farm up would probably be detrimental to him, you know, in the future.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's really just about empowering people, knowing that you're not alone. lean heavily on the community that we have here because it's pretty incredible.
Do you ever imagine that you'll be able to farm like full time?
That's our goal.
Yeah.
We'd love to get there. I love my job, and in Washington, I have to work so many hours to keep my license up. So I will probably always have something part-time as far as a nurse goes, but we would love to see this be a full-time, operation. And right now we're good, where we're at. We're growing small but we're growing steadily, and we love doing this. And
Nice.
we're doing this alongside our kids. So, at the end of the day, I'm like, even if it became nothing, I did it with my family.
Yeah.
And so that's the cool part.
What's the name of the farm?
So the name of our farm is called Delkena Highlands, and that just is based off of the area that we live in, but it's DALKENA and then Highlands. So just like it sounds, high and then lands. And that's based off of us being tucked up a little bit in a valley, kind of up in the higher area. And then Delkena is the area that we're at in Washington. So
Okay.
that's where we're from. And
So I
our
can go,
farm's name.
I'm here. I can buy like a pork chop or something and you'll send it to me?
So we aren't, when we are shipping, I will ship you some steaks, Scott, but we aren't shipping yet. So right now we just deliver to like
Local.
inland Northwest. So yeah, so we're on the border of Idaho actually. So we can touch on, the Idaho kind of Western Idaho border. And then my husband actually commutes and works south of Seattle. And so we can deliver all the way over to, we're inland to Pacific Northwest, basically, is where our area is right now. But we're hoping to be shipping here soon, and I'll send you some steaks.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a silly question?
Sure.
Grass fed, grass finished. I understand fed.
Yeah.
I don't understand finished.
So a lot of cows, like your lovely, yummy Costco cows, they are finished on grain. So they basically, most cows spend their life out on pasture eating grass, and that's how they grow and mature and get to their standard size. And then a lot of cows are brought into basically a barn or like a feedlot, and then they're finished with grain. So that basically plumps them up at the end before butcher. So that can help with making them more tender. People think that has more flavor, but then there's my husband. This is his quote is, think about it this way. You've eaten really healthy. Let's say you've done like a whole 30 your entire life. You've been super, super great. You're super lean. You're walking around. You're getting all the nutrients you need. And then somebody says, here's ice cream, and you get to eat ice cream until the end of your days. How do you think that would feel? And that's basically kind of what happens is you're lean, mean machine until the end, and where you get grain finished.
Which fattens them up, then and people like the fat for flavor.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
And so if you finish with grass, you get a leaner cut.
You get a leaner cut. And like, so for Highlands, for instance, why we raise Highlands is they've got all that long hairy coat on them. So they actually don't have to put on as much fat to keep them insulated. But they still have great marbling, and they still taste just as delicious. And they're not gamey like some of that grass-fed protein can be. Mm-hmm. They're really, they are quite delicious. And I think it's just your preference. We hunt and we fish and we do all of this stuff too. And so, you think about like a deer or an elk, you're like, well, they're not getting finished with any grain. And so we haven't known really any different. And so that's why we chose to go grass-fed, grass-finished. It's cheaper too. If I don't have to buy grain, it saves me in the long run.
Sure. Okay. I just, the word finished, I was just like, finished. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So the last day that they spend here before they're loaded up into a trailer, they are still on grass.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Did I not ask you anything I should have?
No, I think you asked everything. Yeah, I think we're good. And then I have a pug barking. Sorry about that.
Why do you have a dog? Yeah. What in the is wrong with you, honey? Why do you have a dog?
I have 3. I have 2 labs.
Go pet a cow or something. What are you doing?
It's so funny. Yeah, no, I have 2 Labradors and a pug. So they, that keeps me busy too. It's just one more thing.
You're making me laugh. Can I ask a question? I can't believe I have a question about chickens, but I actually do.
Yeah.
I don't understand that there's an animal that, like, I guess free range, if you didn't own those chickens, there'd be a way they'd live and they'd lay eggs. But when you
Yes.
bring them into a coop, like, stuff happens, right? Like, they can go
Yeah.
crazy. Don't the moms go crazy after they lay the eggs and you have to separate them? Or what am I not?
Oh no.
No?
So we have actually, our coop is built on an old hay wagon. And if you go on like our social media or our website, you'll see a picture of it. And that coop, we built it that way so that it could move behind the cows, part of that regenerative agriculture. So they pick the poop and,
Right.
eat the worms and all of that. But they have nesting boxes along the side of it. And so they go in and they lay their eggs, and then they go back to, pecking and scratching in the grass and in the pasture, and acting as a chicken should. And then they come back in the coop at night to roost. But if there is a mom that is, what the term is, broody, so she wants to sit on those eggs and hatch those, those moms, we still take their eggs every day. And because we're a licensed egg dealer in Washington, we candle our eggs. So that means we look at them with a flashlight every day and make sure that there isn't a baby chicken there that we're selling to somebody, that somebody sat on an egg too long and we missed it or something. So we candle all of our eggs, and we've had chicks naturally born here, but usually those moms go and hide their eggs somewhere. They don't do it in the coop. They'll go, last year, in fact, we found 4 chicks and a mom in the field, just randomly, like she had hatched her chicks in a long pile of grass close to the coop so she could go get food and stuff, but would come back to her little clutch of eggs every day and just sit there. And then she hatched out 4 little chicks, and it was beautiful.
You think she was going to make a break for it? You think she had like a whole plan, like in a Disney movie?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a legit thing. Their animal instinct is very, very real.
She's like, I'm going to hatch these eggs and we're going to get the hell out of here.
That's right. And she did. And it was great. It was cool.
It's really kind of
cool
wonderful
to see stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. It really is.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your Instagram. It's Dalkena Highlands at Dalkena. It's DALKENAHIGHLANDS.
Yes.
So if people want to see pictures. Oh, look, there you are.
Yep.
The internet's amazing. I can see you.
Yeah. Don't you love that?
Yeah. Also, I don't know. You played down his mustache a little bit. It's pretty impressive.
I told you it's impressive and it's aggressive. It's a good stash. I love the stash. There's this weird thing that I have for Rip, and I'm like, well, if I can't have the real thing,
I'll get this one.
I'll have my own version. Yeah.
That's not his real hair color. He dyes it for the show.
I know. Which, I mean, yeah, he's a redhead, I think.
What do you like about him? That he's quiet?
I don't know. I think I just like that, he's just like a manly man. Like he's just fierce. If there's like one word that I'd be like about Rip, okay,
that's it.
Fierce.
Yeah, he would not bitch about taking the dog out. I would listen.
Okay.
I've said it before. I'm not embarrassed. I love complaining. I feel like it's a sport.
Sometimes it feels good to complain. I'll call my mom and do that sometimes where I'm like, can I just complain for a minute?
In fairness, I'm not even upset. I just love the complaining part.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, this is really cool. I appreciate you doing this. I do have one last question, but I don't know if it's going to make people sad or not. I mean, what's it like to raise an animal to butcher it? Is it hard?
It is hard. Yeah. There's moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. And our basically our way of thought, our train of thought is that we give them a really, really an amazing life here. They're on pasture, they're getting grass, they're getting all the things that they need, and they have one bad day. And so that's how we look at it. And, I think if I didn't have that connection to my animals, I feel like I should be out of the business, because it isn't easy.
Yeah.
And I'm not heartless. There's a lot of time and effort and energy that goes into each and every animal. So it's just a matter of, knowing at the end of the day, though, that I'm not just providing for my family, I'm providing for other families as well. And we gave that animal the best life that it deserved, really.
Yeah. I mean, I to be clear, like, I don't have a problem with it. I just
Yeah.
it just is. I mean, I'm looking at them like they're kind of adorable, and
Yeah.
then I mean, you have to have some sort of connection with them. You're seeing them constantly. They're seeing you. They must recognize you at some point, and like
They do.
all that goes
Yeah.
along with that. And
Yep.
I don't know. I just figured that personally, it might be hard.
It is hard. There is no doubt about it. It's hard. And yeah, I guess I just try not to like let that sway me. I'm like, yes, they're adorable and cute. And I try and remind people of this too. I'm like, they're adorable and cute, but then they're adorable and cute and they end up being 2,000 pounds and they have horns and they are an animal. And so you have to remember that. I mean, I'm like, dogs are adorable and cute until you remember that they're an animal and they have animal instinct. I mean, I would trust my labs with anybody, but they're still animals.
Yeah.
And
no.
so
I mean, listen, I don't want. I mean, there are a lot of people on this planet. I certainly don't know how to feed them without
right.
animal meat. So
Right.
Anyway, this is like really cool. I thought this was terrific. I appreciate you doing this very much.
No, thank you. I love it. And when we're shipping steaks, I'll ship you a steak.
Oh, see, I really do appreciate that. I will smoke your steak, just so you know.
Oh, I love it.
And
Good.
then I will slice it down, and then I will pick at it for days.
Good.
Like, just is that weird? Like, first of all, I can't believe I'm saying this. At least around here, Costco is the best steak I can find. Like,
I believe that though.
It just, without going to a butcher, like, you can't get the steaks in grocery stores around here are terrible. I don't even know if people realize it or not. I don't know why. I couldn't begin to tell you why. But anyway, I go to Costco. I don't do Prime. I do Choice. So I get a little fattier, like, right. Yep. And then I like to do I smoke them, just a little, like, salt, pepper, like, smoke them up. And then I slice them down after they're cold. And I just pick them.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
That's kind of how I go through my week in the afternoon. I just do a little steak. So
yeah, that sounds delicious to me. I'm in.
Yeah. And people are like, isn't that expensive? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I eat all week for $40. So I was like, I don't know what you're spending to stay alive for a week. I really do. It's so bizarre how I eat. Anyway, thank you. Hold on 1 second for me. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I love talking to Honey. I hope you enjoyed listening. You can check her farm out. I'll give you the link in a second. But first, let's thank Omnipod. Omnipod.com/Juicebox. Omnipod has been supporting this podcast with ads for 9 years. Go say thank you at Omnipod.com/Juicebox. And you know who else had our back today? DrinkAG1.com/Juicebox. They supported the show with their ads, and we get Honey's story in return. Go check out my links. Omnipod.com/Juicebox. DrinkAG1.com/Juicebox. Links in the show notes. Links at Juiceboxpodcast.com. And I have Honey's farm here for you. Hold on a second. Here it is. I'm going to spell it DALKENAHIGHLANDS.com. Dalkina, right? Dalkina. Definitely Dalkina. Yep, I got it. Did you enjoy hearing me say Dalkina 15 times in a row? You didn't? Too bad. I'm not editing it out. DalkinaHighlands.com. Really cool. There's a little video. It tells you a little bit about their life and pictures of adorable cows that I think people eat, but you don't know how adorable they are when you're eating them. They just taste delicious at that point. Go check them out, would you please? What a great little family and a wonderful farm. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, the Bold Beginnings series from the Juicebox Podcast is a terrific place to begin listening. In this series, Jenny Smith and I will go over the questions most often asked at the beginning of type 1. Jenny is a certified diabetes care and education specialist who is also a registered and licensed dietitian, and Jenny has had type 1 diabetes for 35 years. My name is Scott Benner, and I am the father of a child who has type 1 diabetes. Our daughter Arden was diagnosed in 2006 at the age of 2. I believe that at the core of diabetes management understanding how insulin works and how food and other variables impact your system is of the utmost importance. The Bold Beginnings series will lead you down the path of understanding. The series is made up of 24 episodes, and it begins at episode 698 in your podcast or audio player. I'll list those episodes at the end of this. To listen, you can go to juiceboxpodcast.com, go up to the menu at the top and choose Bold Beginnings, or go into any audio app like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and then find the episodes that correspond with the series. Those lists again are at Juicebox Podcast up in the menu, or if you're in the private Facebook group, in the featured tab. The private Facebook group has over 40,000 members. There are conversations happening right now and 24 hours a day that you would be incredibly interested in. So don't wait. Check out the Bold Beginnings series today and get started on your journey. Episode 698 defines the Bold Beginnings series. 702, honeymooning. 706, adult diagnosis. 711 and 712 go over diabetes terminologies. In episode 715, we talk about fear of insulin. In 719, the 15-15 rule. Episode 723, long-acting insulin. 727, target range. 731, food choices. 735, pre-bolus. 739, carbs. 743, stacking. 747, flexibility. In episode 751, we discuss school. In episode 755, exercise. 759, guilt, fears, hope, and expectations. In episode 763 of the Bold Beginnings series, we talk about community. 772, journaling. 776, technology and medical supplies. Episode 780, treating low blood glucose. Episode 784, dealing with insurance. 788, talking to your family. And episode 805, illness and ketone management. Check it out. It will change your life.